Hey guys, it's David Huffaker, your operating partner in your market centers and your team leader. I wanted to start shooting some videos with just some industry updates, right? What's going on in the world, some of the conversations that we're all having together offline, right? As we're walking around the market centers or as we're having different meetings. And so I wanted to put together just some quick facts, right? I want this to be valuable for you. And so as we talk about what's going on in the industry, it's my intention to begin sending these out to you guys every week or so as needed, right? So that we can stay in conversation and that you can be more informed on what's going on in the industry and how the market is shifting or moving so that you can have better conversations with your consumers, with your clients, customers, and people in your communities. Okay? So I want this to be a benefit. So that being said, if there's ever specific topics that you want us to discuss, happy to dive in. Some of the main places that I go and look for information really become on KW Connect. What are the conversations that Gary and Jason are having as industry leaders? What are we hearing other people ask questions about, right? And then seeing what's on Facebook and also Inman, right? I know Inman, we often joke Inman is the celebrity tabloids of the real estate industry, and yet it gives you an idea of the conversations going on within our industry. Other places to look for information are the National Association of Realtors websites or your local board website. Also has some great information. And so one of the most common questions we're all hearing right now, right, is are we in a shifting market, right? Has something changed? Are we in a bubble, right? Are prices about to collapse? And since we can't interact, I'm going to tell you my 2 cents on it, my thoughts, and then give you a little bit of data to back that up. And so I think if you look at any industry expert or anyone right now, we would most assuredly say that we are not in a housing bubble. It's easy to look back and reflect. I know I graduated college in 2002, and so my first kind of endeavor in real estate through any type of shift was the 2009 recession. And so if you lived through that, right, sometimes we look back on that. And I love someone the other day made the analogy of that wasn't a shift, that was a cliff. That was specific to our industry. That was intentional fraud within the mortgage industry, which affected our real estate industry. And so that was a very significant change in how business was done. But think about back then also, right? People were paying top dollar for the house. They were getting homes for very little money. And the people that were impacted by that the most were the ones who bought with no money in. And so when the market shifted, they had also been given loans that they couldn't afford. And so when it came time to actually pay those increased payments or the adjustable rate mortgages as they went up, they couldn't afford it. And they also couldn't sell it because they didn't have any equity in their home. And so I'd stop and ask you now, right? Who do you know that doesn't have equity in their home? I mean, even people that bought 6 months ago right now have equity in their home, right? And so a lot of the conversations around the forbearance moratorium being lifted and things like that, the eviction moratorium being lifted, you kind of look up and you go like, well, even if you've been in forbearance for the last 18 months and you're still struggling to make those payments, you don't look at it and go, I'm going to go into foreclosure, right? Because you still look at that. And if you've been in your home the last 2 years without having to make payments, that means you've been there for the last 2 years. And what have prices done over the last 2 years, right? So most of them have equity in their home. The worst case scenario is someone that's looked up in the last 6 months, has went and refinanced to take out as much money as possible, and then still can't make their mortgage payment now. That also being said, most banks, I don't know any banks really lending more than 80-85% loan to value on a HELOC. So it's different now, right? People that are in trouble now have equity in their home. And if you have equity in your home, you're not going to have it foreclosed on, right? You're going to put it on the market with an agent and sell it and take out that money because that's valuable. It's one of the few assets you may have access to. So if you're comparing that back to kind of previous bubbles or previous cycles, you kind of look up and go, that's different. Right, that's probably not the same. Additionally, when you look at where we're at, so a lot of you have told me like it feels slower, right? It feels different. But I would challenge you to go investigate the numbers, right? There's the two worlds, right? There's the feeling, right? How the market feels, how we react as agents. We have our pulse on the market. And then there's the logical numbers side of the business that really shows us what's really going on. And so it's very easy as we're having conversations to get caught up in the conversation of the market feels different, right? Because it may. We're not seeing 15 offers now, we're seeing 5 offers. We're not seeing, we're still seeing overpriced. You're right? It is a little bit different, but I want you to think about the why behind it. Everything we do in real estate boils down to simple economics, right? Economics 101 says that with increased supply and lower demand, prices are going to go down. On the flip side of that, with limited supply and increased demand, prices are going to go up. And so we've seen very limited supply and very high demand, especially in most of our areas. So if you just hold on to that one simple principle, it will carry you through your entire real estate career in terms of when people ask you how the market is, being able to forecast what the future probably looks like. So I know a lot of us are kind of going like, man, we've seen 16, 17, 20%. I mean, 20% price growth year over year. Like that's nuts, right? Like that's amazing. And so you go back to the economics of it and you go, why is that? And you go like, well, we've had very, very, very limited supply and very, very high demand, right? So people are willing to way overpay or pay top dollar and push those prices up, right? Again, back to the economics. So you go, okay, so what's the probability that that changes over the next 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, 24 months as you start looking out? So as you're having these conversations with people in the market, I want to share my screen with you real quick and show you something. This is our local MLS. If you're in Middle Tennessee, if you're not in Middle Tennessee, you probably have something similar. But as we go here, right, one of the things I've really learned to rely on lately is the InfoSparks data. It's in real time from RealTracs. I think it's probably the fastest data we can get access to. And so it's just really cool to look at, right? When I pull it up, I usually go over here and look at a rolling 12 months, right? So each data point is 12 months of activity. And then I want to look at it over kind of a 3-year period, right? Sometimes I'll switch it to monthly because that helps give me a better understanding, right? As I kind of go mouse over, can see it from there. So let's look at it monthly, right? As we look at it, everyone said it felt a little bit slower, right? We saw this kind of little dig right here into July. Where average prices went from 350 to 342.5. Not a huge deal there, right? Not knowing what happens. If you go back here, you can see it from, they happen every now and then, right? Maybe it's a big townhome community came on the market or something. But you look at it and you go like, all right, not a huge deal. So when I go to new listings, right? New listings coming on the market have been, fairly flat, right? Over, you can kind of see our trend here since March, right? We're putting these on. And then what most of us care about, right, is pending home sales. And so, right, I mean, you look at this trajectory that we've seen since the beginning of the year, right, in this climb, and you go like, man, that up angle does not indicate that there's something going on in the market. And so I go, okay, right, our pending home sales are higher than they've ever been, right? There's nothing else as we go across showing there. And this is all of the MLS, right? And so if you're not familiar with InfoSparks, right, you could go in and add in, let's say Hendersonville, Tennessee, if you wanted, and kind of get that to overlay, right, as you're looking at them, right? So you can kind of see the difference there. But we want to look at the entire MLS, right? And so we kind of look at that and go, like, okay, pending home sales look pretty awesome. This is the one I think that most people are feeling, right? When you hear about what people are talking about in the market, we look at closed sales. We saw from January, right, this climb and this huge jump up, right? And then we hit this, we go up and we hit this 6,000 homes closed in June. And then all of a sudden in July, it retracted a little bit, right? And then in August, right now, it's pretty flat from July to August. And so I think this kind of peak here and then this downturn is what makes it feel a little bit slower. But think about seasonality, right? Think about from a standpoint of what's going on in our market and just life for folks, right? For our customers around July and August. So what happens in June, right? All of a sudden, everyone looks up and it's summertime, right? And we know that selling season tends to be late spring to summer, right? And I've just always experienced personally that June and July are great months for closings, but the activity there falls off. As agents, our kids are out of school, we're taking more vacations, our focus gets a little bit different there. And so what I like to do is go back and compare it to previous years. Well, comparing stuff over the last 2 years can be a challenge, right? Because we've had COVID going on. But I go back and I look at last year and go like, okay, look, here's this spike in the summer, and then we start seeing it kind of fall down, right? And it doesn't mean that there was something wrong with the market, right, as it did that. So I go back and go like, all right, what about 2009, right? So as I fall back, go like, oh, look, there's this increase in 2009 peak, oh, July, and then we see the number of closed homes falling off. So what does that mean, right? As they're falling off, did supply and demand shift, right? Is now there more supply than there is demand? And I would argue that there's not, right? There's just fewer people. So what you're feeling is a slowdown in the acceleration, because we cannot continue on that trajectory, right? That is an unhealthy trajectory of business, of prices, of all of that, right? That is not sustainable. So what we're feeling is a slowdown in the acceleration of the market, not a shifting of the market. And so I think that's the best way to explain it to your clients or consumers, is it's that acceleration, right? It's that slowing down. We're still in the race, right? The cars are still going. We're kind of pulling back a little bit. And it's more a seasonality shift of what you're feeling that happens every year, right? You see this hump, right? Hump, hump, hump. So what you're going to see here, right? You're going to continue to see over the next few months, the number of closed sales is going to go down, right? But if I go back and compare it, in August of last year, 5,700, that was a great year. August of this year, 5,800. Okay, both great years, right? August of 2019, 5,200. I don't see anything in the numbers there that tell me that the market is shifting. Days on the market, again, fairly consistent, right? Still pretty low. The month supply of homes, I mean, look at that, guys. I mean, just still really, really low. So if I'm looking at supply and demand, I look at this one and I go like, yeah, still not a ton of supply out there, right? And when I look at demand, I go, pending home sales are increasing, right? And the homes for sale is decreasing, right? You see one going down and one going up, which indicates to you guys that the market is still really, really good, and it will continue to be. I'm no expert, right? But I'm willing to say that it is going to continue to hold up, short of something crazy happening in the world, which is more likely these days. But it's going to continue to hold up probably for a few more years, simply from the fact of, if you go back to after 2009. So a lot of my background is in new construction. I mean, in 2006, 2007, I mean, we're cranking out new homes as fast as possible, at the rate of like 1 million a year. Well, after the recession, right, a lot of builders went through a lot of pain during that recession because they built homes on speculation, right? They built spec homes anticipating that there would be a buyer for them. And when there weren't, it really hurt a lot of them financially. A lot of them went out of business. A lot of them learned some great financial lessons there. But you didn't see, as the market has increased from 2011, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, you didn't see the builders go out and buy more lots. You didn't see them get back into the old pattern of 1 million homes a year being built. So what you run into there is that supply is still being constricted by those of us willing to put our resale homes on the market. And there's not enough supply in order to weather a millennial generation that is really starting to buy a lot of homes as that demand continues to increase, as we're working from home more and buying multiple properties. There's just not enough supply. And builders aren't in a position to be able to reach an adequate number of feeding the market with new supply anytime soon. Realistically, guys, because of the time it takes to get developments through municipalities, to get approvals, to get codes, to move the dirt, to put in the roads, to put in the utilities, all of that takes, even if you wanted to start a project today, especially in Davidson County or some of the surrounding counties, it's 18 months to 2 years before you may actually be building, depending on where you're at in the process, or if you're starting just from raw dirt, especially if it's not zoned the correct way. So you look at that and you go like, there isn't a real easy solution to fix the supply problem. So if anything is happening in our market, we're going to continue to see that contraction. As long as we're continuing to hear Amazon bringing more jobs, or Oracle bringing more jobs, and the job market being very constricted, right, and more people coming to it. Again, economics, guys, supply and demand, very low supply, very high demand, no real solution to fix the supply over the next few years as builders continue to try to ramp up and build more and build more. I think we continue to see this trend happening. I don't believe we can continue to sustain the price growth, right, as you look at it as a percentage of income. However, I've seen some great videos out there about how now the cost of a home, even though it's more, is less of a percentage of income than it was 2 or 3 years ago. So when we're looking at a mortgage, it's how much of a percentage of it of someone's income. It's actually less now than it was a few years ago because interest rates are lower, because our cost of living and increase in pay has gone up. It's offsetting what the increase in the actual dollar amount is over 30 years. All that to say, guys, I hope that this is valuable for you. Use these stats on the InfoSpark to share that with consumers and with clients. It really positions you as the local economist of choice, which is how we want to show up as business owners and professionals for our clients. I hope you're having a great week. I'll continue to share some information about the industry as it's relevant. I want to make it valuable for your time. And I appreciate you being a part of our world and letting me share with you. Talk to you later, guys.